Hey everyone, Joe Lowry, Whattaday, and my guest today is no stranger to the world of professional wrestling. She is currently a member of the Major League Wrestling broadcast team. She dives into everything from music to bodybuilding. She's a fellow YouTuber, journalist, vlogger. The list goes on, and she's also known as the interview queen. Yes, I am nervous. So let's give a warm Whattaday welcome to the lovely and talented Alicia Atout.
Hi, Joe. What a day.
Hey, welcome to the show, Alicia. Great to have you. Now you're in Canada, correct?
Correct. Yes, Toronto, Canada.
How's the weather up there?
Freezing. Before you even ask, that's like the first thing I think about is the weather, because it is just so bone chilling. We had about 2 nights ago really big snowfall. It was almost like a blizzard throughout the day. Yeah. So yeah, it's cold, it's chilly, but I'm staying indoors other than playing some ball with my dog and just trying to keep warm.
Awesome. I hear you. I think I'm in Boston, so I think some of your cold weather finally made its way down here because we have wind chill below zero, 50 yesterday, 50 degrees tomorrow, snow last week. You know, it's part of New England, but I always ask my guests where they're hailing from in Canada. We got the old Montreal Express coming down, so I can feel for you there. So I'm looking at your stuff. Your resume is unbelievable. You have interviewed a plethora of talent and celebrities. You know, so tell me, who is that one interview? You know, strike that. Give me your top 5 bucket list at people you want to really interview right now at this moment.
Okay, so it's so hard narrowing it down because even though most of my bucket list has been kind of checked off, there are still some names. So recently I had Ace Frehley of Kiss on, but I would still really, really love to speak with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. So those are 2 for you right there.
Huge.
Oh my gosh, massive. But you know, if you don't put that out into the world and you don't have those big goals, they will never happen. So
exactly.
I have 2 other huge ones for you. I really want to interview The Rock and John Cena. They are just 2 of my favorites since I was a kid, and I've realized over the years that you can get some great interviews through people in their other avenues. So of course they're both into acting, so you just never know. So fingers crossed one day those can maybe happen. And then for my last one, that's 4. Yep, that's 4. Keep it up with the math there, Alicia.
There you go.
But yeah, for my last one, I'd probably have to say, and this is literally a dream interview, but I think Paul McCartney would just be mind-blowing.
Wow.
Like, I am a massive Beatles fan. So
really? Okay.
Like, since I was a baby, like, they are just an integral part of my life.
Yep.
So being able to just even like look at him, even if it's through Zoom or something, would blow my, like, holy crap, my job brought me to this point. So that would just be like a personal gratification.
Now, I've been to thousands of concerts, and I got to tell you, my top 5 easily, Paul McCartney, when Linda was alive. This is back in like the early 90s, Trippin' the Light Fantastic Tour. That's awesome. I went there, and I was surrounded by people that had gone to the 4 concerts before and the 5 that were coming up, because he was there for literally 2 weeks. And he came, and it was the best concert ever. 4 hours of nonstop music. It was great. So I got to agree with you there. Sir Paul McCartney is definitely on there. Have you ever reached out to John Cena on Twitter at all to try and get him on?
I have. He follows me, but he follows a lot of people now.
He does. Yeah, he does. And he's a motivational guy. So it's like you always wonder, is there someone else behind that keyboard there and all that stuff? So So there is, you know, like I said, looking at your resume, is there anything you haven't done? And I'm not talking just about interviewing. I'm talking about whether it's wrestling or acting or what's in your forecast for you personally that you haven't done yet that you want to do besides the interview thing?
I have 2 major goals, and one of them was actually going to come to fruition in April of 2020, and then this damn pandemic came into play and just washed all of my plans into the ocean. So one of them was I was supposed to go to the UK to host for a mega huge wrestling show there, like the biggest one that they host or they have, and that unfortunately got nixed, but fingers crossed it can happen in the future. So going over to the UK is still a huge goal of mine. And then the other one would be to actually get into acting some more. I never really saw myself as an actor until coming into the world of wrestling, because spoiler alert, a lot of this stuff is predetermined, folks.
What?
So
okay.
right. So
off the script.
I know. But it's one of those things where I never knew I had it in me. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting down with these larger than life characters and gimmicks, and I can play off them. And I do have that little actress inside of me. So to maybe try to expand into other roles, whether, in wrestling or outside of that, that's something I would really like to venture into. It's a nice little challenge.
That's really cool. Speaking of the UK, one of my biggest fans over there is Stu from Stu's Wrestling Podcast. Not sure if you've ever heard of him. He's a big guy, wrestling guy over there. I think he's number 2 now over there in the UK for podcasts. And he was on my show last year. I was on his show this year, and he's telling me about all the pandemic over there has really done a number on them. And I think they're still kind of like just now lifting the lockdown stuff. So they've gotten much worse than our side anyways. I don't know how you guys dealing with the pandemic up there in Canada. I hear lots of stories, but I always like to ask firsthand.
I feel like we're actually a lot more similar to the UK as far as our stance goes and just safety wise. Up here, you have to get tested before leaving the country. You have to be tested before entering the country. And I know that was recently implemented as soon as Biden got in, but it wasn't for, most of the pandemic. And then, and then anyways, that's for you guys. But we still are in lockdown. We just came out of a pretty tight provincial stay-at-home order. So now it's still essentials. Our malls were closed for a very long time. So it is pretty tight in terms of safety, which I completely get. But it's definitely...
Now, it sounds like you guys are where we were almost a year ago at this time, because I'll never forget March 17th, St. Patty's Day. The governor, everybody comes on, shutdown, boom. Next 2 weeks, we're going to figure this out. And then, they went into the phase thing. Now we're entering the phase where arenas and stuff can now open, not till the end of March. But your malls are still closed, and schools and all that nature, they're still locked down?
So schools recently reopened. There's been this thing where they're down, then they're open. But they recently reopened a few weeks ago. And but kids don't have full days, so it's in shifts, so they're not as big of groups. Malls recently reopened, but only certain sections you can enter, and a lot of stores are closed down. So it really is a huge difference. Like, I was in the States back in December, and you could literally go and do whatever you wanted almost. Like, it was crazy. Meanwhile, you come back here and it's a lot tighter. So it's it's a big difference.
Where were you in particular when you came to the States?
So back in December, I was in Ohio, and then I was there in September as well in Chicago and Ohio.
So they probably lifted some of the sanctions by then as well. But it's tough. I mean, we're just coming around now, and I feel bad for you guys up there. Like I said, I've talked to people over in the UK, and they're like still massively, they can only go shopping 1 day a week and all that stuff. And I feel for them as well. So, all right, let's get back to what we were talking about here. Now, as a fellow interviewer, I like to do what they call like a quick word association. It's just a couple of questions about your interview experiences. I'll give you like a real quick thing.
Ooh.
First thing that comes to mind. Okay. Do you think you can handle that?
We're about to find out.
All right. Ready, set, go. Strangest interview.
Rosemary.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, she licked my hand and it was disturbing.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Weirdest location for an interview?
Right outside of a bathroom.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would think airport, bar room, restaurant, where they just happen to run into somebody and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to interview you right now. And they're like, okay.
Literally, like, you can see the bathroom door in the back of the interview.
That's
like
awesome.
You can see
That's awesome. Anybody go in the bathroom at the time? I hate to say that, but
they were literally like, the door was open. I was like 17. It was one of my first interviews. It was at this really dingy bar with a band that I loved called Savoir Adore. I pulled them aside for like a literal 2-minute interview because that's all I did back then. And I was like, looking back at it now, it's like, wow.
That's awesome. That's classic, though. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. How about one interview where you were so starstruck you lost focus?
Metallica.
I was going to ask you about that. How are they? I'd love to interview them.
Oh my gosh. Robert was incredible. Like, for someone that famous, he was just so humble and appreciative. And remember the intro, he was like, yeah, this is the best sight ever. And I literally have it on film. And I geeked out. Like, the interview was incredible. And luckily I didn't really black out, like, not black out, but kind of.
I know, I hear you.
You know what I mean? But afterwards I was like, wow. That just happened.
That's awesome. I had a feeling you were going to say that, but I just wanted to throw it out there anyways. Okay, what about your most embarrassing moment during an interview?
There was this one time, it was like my 5th interview ever, maybe my 10th. I was 17 years old and I interviewed a band called CSS, and in the band there's a pair of twins.
Okay.
And so they literally look the exact same. And I thought I was sitting down with one named Anna, but it was the other one. So in the intro, I'm like, "Hi, it's Alicia. I'm sitting here with Anna from," and then she says her name. And I was like,
my goodness.
"Oh shit." And ever since that day, I've never made a mistake like that.
That's
ever.
how you learn. That's how you learn. I mean,
Yep.
It's like me with the stupid record button. I'm so excited to interview, and we're 10 minutes in, and I go, I got to hit record. We got to start over here. And everyone's like, really? I'm like, yeah. All right, last one. Most controversial moment you've had or may have experienced while interviewing?
I've slapped a few people because they've said some really horrible things. So
Really?
that's done really well for views.
Okay. Please provide details on that.
I mean, a few years ago, I had MJF on the show, and he told me how he's still astonished that a woman is able to actually host her own show. And then I just whacked him across the face.
Well, that's understandable. That's understandable.
Oh, none of these were uncalled for, trust me.
Right.
I've had Scarlett Bordeaux on the show, and she said some hurtful things, and I've had to kind of clap back. I now have this thing going on with Selena De La Renta, where we are at each other's throats, just despising one another, and I've had to pull some strings to really show her who's the real boss and queen in this feud.
That is unbelievable. That's good stuff right there, huh? Slapping people, getting the most views. I guess I got to do that when this pandemic's over and I get out of the studio. That's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start slapping people.
Start slapping people around.
Yeah, I might get some bail money out of it, but that's about it. I'll probably be thrown right in jail. So, right. Let's talk a little bit about Major League Wrestling. They've produced some unbelievable talent over the years. I know they're relatively new, 4 or 5 years old. I know MJF has spent time there. You have the current champion, Jacob Fatu, which I know on social media. Of course, the middleweight champ, Leo Rush, former NXT superstar. Yeah. Of course, you have the Von Erichs there. I've seen them a few times. A couple of those stars, mainly Flying Brian Pillman Jr., was recently on Whattaday. Where do you think MLW is headed? I want to say right now and probably post-pandemic. What do you think is going to be happening with them?
Yeah, well, pre-pandemic, we had so many massive plans in terms of taping in brand new locations, really just growing and growing. But it's been really incredible to see since this whole pandemic hit, the way that they've been able to just move with the changes and still continue to grow and still create new deals. So I know that there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now, which I can't share details on, but just in terms of new partnerships, new places we can end up filming, new countries that our program is now available in.
Yeah, so, I was on the website. I saw that. Yeah, you guys are
everywhere. It's awesome. Yeah.
Now, from what I know, is you can watch it on YouTube on Tuesday nights, right? Fusion and all that.
Yeah, so it's Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. EST on our YouTube channel.
Okay. Now, is there any deals coming up where you might be on national TV soon? Any cable companies looking at you guys? Or
we are actually on BN Sports, where you can watch us on TV. Yep. We're also on Pluto and Fubo, which you can stream. And there is a really cool tactic we're using now, where every TV has apps, so including like Roku. So if you happen to access any of those apps through your actual television system, you can watch us on any platform there too. So that's been really cool.
That's awesome. And now, are you guys? They're based out of New York. Where do they film now?
So actually, the last time we filmed,
I don't know where they filmed. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, we had tapings back in October, but it was at a top secret location, which we are not allowed to enclose. But it was incredible finally being able to be back at it and hosting and just seeing the guys again. It was really nice and uplifting. So fingers crossed, we'll be back at that very.
But it
soon.
Is somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, correct? That you guys were filming at.
Yes.
Top secret location. Never heard that one before.
Right.
Now, for yourself personally, you're on the broadcast team and so forth. You ever want to get in the ring? I always ask that. I know when you're around it all the time, some people want to woohoo. And, I got to ask, is that something that you could see in the horizon?
So in terms of actually professional wrestling, no, I bruise like a peach, and I don't have a passion for it in that aspect. So definitely not. But if I did have to take a bump, or as we've previously discussed, slap some people around for being a certain way, I'm totally down for that. So I love being in ring in terms of hosting and being a part of storylines and everything. But in terms of actually like taking a professional wrestling route as a career. That's just not in the cards or interest for me.
Awesome. Well, you're very, very talented. And, I always ask questions like that because some people, everybody's avenues are different. Mine's different. Yours is different. Some people never heard of professional wrestling. I've interviewed people who have been on the scene less than a year. And they're like, I never watched this stuff. And all of a sudden I turned it on and there it is. It's like, wow. Right. But again, staying on the wrestling thing, you said you watched it growing up. And who did you watch? Anybody in particular?
Yeah, so when I first started watching it, I was about 2, 3 years old because my dad would put it on the TV. So at that point,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's always the dad that's watching it. I never hear about the mom watching it, but okay.
Right.
Sorry.
No, my mom's definitely been suckered into many pay-per-views with us, many. But back then, some of my favorites were Edge and Christian. I loved The Rock, John Cena, and the cool thing is we would watch so many different eras together. So I went through a point of just loving people like Mick Foley and Jake, and Jake the Snake. So I really do. And then a phase where like I just absolutely loved watching Cody Rhodes all the time. So there are a lot of different phases. Chris Jericho. I could go on and on, but there were so many different interesting people back then. But like for me, Attitude Era was always where it was at because it was just the most intriguing and new for me. So I always loved that, especially.
Yeah. So do you watch AEW by any chance? I know a lot of people are loyal to their companies, but I do know people channel surf and want to check it out. So do you do that?
Yeah. So at this point, when it comes to other companies and just television shows for wrestling, I'll mainly try to see if there's a match that sounded really good or that the internet was kind of buzzing about that's worthwhile. And then I'll like check that one out. If there's an indie show that had something cool, I'll be like, oh, let's check that match out. Because at this point, the only one I watch in full is MLW every Wednesday, because if I'm not doing anything recording wise, I'm editing my interviews, I'm reaching out for new interviews and doing campaigns. So just catching up with like 8 hours of wrestling a week is impossible. It's tough. I nitpick now. I just don't have it in me. It's like I go from working to wrestling to watching it. It's a lot.
I'm in the same boat because I'll DVR everything, and next thing you know, I'm at 100% capacity on my DVR, and I'm like, oh my god, what the heck happened? So it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Whattaday. I know we're running out of time, but real quickly, how can, not that they need to know, but how can people get a hold of you in social media? Why don't you throw your info out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight. But for those who didn't know of me previously, or you aren't following me now, just type up Alicia Atout in your Google boxes, and there you will find my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, merch store, and most importantly, my YouTube channel, which has thousands and thousands of interviews with musicians, wrestlers, bodybuilders, and celebrities. So please check it out.
That's awesome. You're like a Jill of all trades, master of none. You have a lot of stuff going on.
I try.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on Whattaday, folks. Let's give a warm Whattaday serenade to Miss Alicia Atout for coming on Whattaday. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, I'm Joe Lowry. Whattaday.